Senate Standing Committee on Education will come to order. This is meeting 6. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Senator Givens. Here. Senator Higdon. Here. Senator Meredith. Present. Senator Neal. Senator Rawlings. Here. Senator Reed. Here. Senator Thomas. Here. Senator Tishner. Here. Senator Williams. Here. Senator Wilson. Senator Wise. Here. Chair West.
Here. We have a quorum duly constituted to conduct business. Normal Education Committee rules, please silence your cell phones. No signs allowed in committee rooms. If you wish to speak on any topic, need to sign up at the back, get on the list. Do any members today have any introductions?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Givens.
I'll do a shout out to my Greene County Superintendent Will Hodges, close friend. Honored to have you here, Will. Thank you for your leadership in Greene County.
Thank you. These appear to be the true believers in education out here today. On a Monday, no standing room only today, but glad everybody could attend. Any other introductions, Senator Wise?
Mr. Chairman, not to leave out the person sitting beside Mr. Hodges, but Miss Carrie Ballinger from Rockcastle County, outside of my district, but also a great advocate, along with Mr. Hodges for public education. Thank you both.
Thank you so much. With seeing no introductions, first up on our agenda, we have Senate Bill 68, an act relating to education. Senator Rawlings. And as he's getting settled, I want to thank all the members for being in attendance today. I apologize for doing a special called meeting, but we're getting into crazy season. We're going to have a lot more bills rolling down the pike and just want to kind of get ahead of things. Whenever you're ready, as you know,
right.
Make sure the green light's on, state your name for the record, and proceed.
I'm Steve Rawlings, Senate District 11.
Jay Ritter with the Kentucky Department of Education.
Matt Ross with the Kentucky Department of Education.
So, Mr. Chairman, we've got a committee substitute.
Absolutely. Do we have a committee substitute? Do we have a motion?
Motion on the second.
We have a motion from Senator Givens. We have a second from Senator Tishner. All those in favor of adopting the sub say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Sub is adopted.
Thank
Floor
you.
is yours.
All right, Chairman West, speaking on the sub, it's just a small change on the last page on line 10 on how the budgets of the school districts, on how they should be published in a newspaper and on a website. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for giving us the opportunity to present this important legislation today. As you know, education is the foundation of our future, both for individuals and for the state. For too long, we have watched as academic standards have slipped, priorities have shifted away from core learning, and students have been left unprepared for the challenges ahead. This bill is a key step toward reversing that trend. The goal of this bill, along with updating our statutory scheme, is to return to academic excellence and ensure that every student receives a high-quality education. That means focusing on the fundamentals, reading, writing, math, science, along with critical and independent thinking. It means empowering teachers with the tools they need to succeed in holding our education system accountable to the highest standards. At the same time, we recognize that success looks different for every student. That's why this bill also emphasizes vocational and technical training, ensuring that those who choose a skilled trade have the opportunity to thrive. Strengthening career and technical education will provide students with real-world skills, expand workplace opportunities, and support the industries that drive our state's economy. We cannot afford to settle for mediocrity. Our students deserve better, our parents expect better, and the future of this Commonwealth depends on it. With this bill, we reaffirm the commitment to an education system that provides knowledgeable, capable, and well-prepared citizens who will have success and fulfillment in the workplace. So I'm going to defer to my colleagues here, experts, in some of the changes on the bill itself and what came to be from the original provisions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Senator Rollins. We appreciate including some of the departments sort of asked for some additional cleanup. I direct you all to sort of section 4 of the bill. This is I brought a sort of audio or some visual. This is the Kentucky school laws, and occasionally we have laws in Kentucky that sort of become superseded, become outdated, whatever. So we're always looking for sort of these reporting aspects that districts are asked to do, or the department's asked to do, by gathering information that districts provide when they no longer seem to be relevant or useful, and they're just more of a burdensome. So Section 4 talks about these local wellness policies. We're not really doing anything to the local wellness policy except striking the report that the department makes. Per the existing statute, districts must adopt a local wellness policy. Nothing has changed about that. Each district may adopt their own, or they may use some off-the-shelf product. There's a great variation. I think a majority of districts use one product, but it makes collating that data into reporting for reporting purposes from the department to the legislature really difficult and not very meaningful. Also, those local wellness policies for districts that participate in school and community nutrition, those are subject to federal regulations, and those are also reviewed during monitoring for those school and community nutrition programs. So that part of the bill, that's what Section 4 does. Section 5 talks about the interim report on school breakfast programs. So this is one of those things that was probably started in the beginning when school breakfast was a lot more of a new thing. To present, all districts in the state of Kentucky provide school breakfasts except for Anchorage, I think is. They provide. So we have 3 districts that do not participate in the federal school and community nutrition program. So there's only one. So even so, all districts provide breakfast at this point. So this reporting is really one of those reports that we send over, and we don't think there's a whole lot of interest or really necessity to keep providing that. And then Section 6, the school budget. The language that is being struck around the publication of school budgets, that part harkens back to a statute that was passed in 1958 when school districts were not the taxing authority, it was the county. So the language that is being struck really doesn't do anything about publishing overall, or replaces sort of that publishing to be consistent with how other things are published. This part just talks about filing it with your county clerk. They're no longer your taxing authority. That part of that statute just still continues, and it's really not necessary. And then I guess I would draw your attention to Section 7, where it repeals 157.061. It says annual audits of school districts. This is not really repealing. There's another statute, KRS 156.265, that has to do with the annual audits of school districts. Those audits, there's an audit committee with the Attorney General, the Governor's Office, the APA, the Department of Education. Those do they do an annual audit. That's a separate system. I'm sorry. And then the final is the annual assessment of school nutrition in the district. That is another sort of thing that is covered under federal regulations and just sort of duplicative. So happy to take any questions. We got some experts if you want to go down the rabbit hole.
Sounds excellent. I hear a lot of red tape reduction in the bill. So we'll start first with Senator Thomas.
Thank you very much. And tell me your name again.
It's Matt Ross. I'm the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Finance and Operations at KDE.
Matt, you've answered part of my question regarding the school breakfast program, but I noticed on page 17 of the committee sub, beginning with lines 10 through lines 13 on page 17, you also strike out reporting regarding physical activity. When I was reading this, I thought, well, getting reports is something that we like to have as a legislature.
Right.
And I saw the report striking out the school breakfast information and striking out the report regarding physical activity information. why are we striking out the report regarding the amount of physical activity that takes place in schools? I kind of think that physical activity is important for
Sure.
these
So
young people.
the way the statute is structured is districts must adopt a policy. There's no requirement for them to report that to KDE. So KDE always struggles to get adequate responses. We still report what we get. Where districts have adopted different policies with different sort of the information that they're available, it's apples and oranges largely. So they will still be required to adopt that policy. That policy will still be looked at when they undergo school and community nutrition reviews. So it's more or less that the report that we have, because we have no authority to require it and require it in a certain manner, that information is just apples and orange. So, we continue to make that report annually. It's just we don't feel like it's very useful. My school health branch and my school and community nutrition branch just didn't see the merit in continuing to ask districts to continue to do that reporting when it's, they're already doing it, they're already adopting it, they're already doing these activities in their district. It's just the way it's reflected to us is just.
Well, Matt, my question is this. If you strike out this statute, then is reporting by schools of physical activity, does that become voluntary? Because it's not statutory, then it becomes voluntary, not mandatory.
Right. So the reporting was a reporting requirement, the KDE report. The district never had a mandate for them to report to us. They just had to adopt that policy. So we're always asking them to provide it, and we get, limited probably responses. But all districts are still required to do this, and all districts during their school and community nutrition reviews, those are looked at, those are monitored, and have to comply with the federal regulations on those policies.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Chairman. So this seems to be.
Senator Neal, need your microphone on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Other than what's been explained, I'm looking at this. This seems to be sort of upgrading some of the language with some specificity, or more appropriate language to do what's already in the bill, and eliminating some things that they reported, as the previous testimony, reported by other requirements, but doesn't make it difficult for what you have to do
That's right. Well,
because of the way it's being reported.
That's correct. And it also makes confusion in districts when you have two different standards for local wellness policy. You have a federal school, USDA, school and community nutrition monitoring process, and then you have KDE's local wellness policy or the statutory local wellness policy, which are getting at the same thing. I think we had the local wellness policy before the feds did, but once they come in and it's your school and community nutrition funding and program is required to it, it just becomes a very confusing process for school districts. Oftentimes the reporting too, if you think about a school district, you have your school and community nutrition director, right? They are probably not on your physical activity side, your PE side. So you trying to involve both of them. And a lot of times with districts, they stick it on the school and community nutrition director. So the reporting there from when it comes to KDE is again, it gets to be a little muddy. The federal program, the federal review process for school and community nutrition is a much cleaner sort of review and monitoring process.
Which leads to my remaining question, and that is, so how does it, I just heard in the introduction, because I've heard this before, I'm not sure how it manifests itself, but how does this bill relate to any shift in core learning that we now have in our schools?
So I think that's more to the beginning parts of the language changes in the beginning of Senator Rollins
Right.
of 68. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying, yes, go ahead. Senator Rollins,
Well,
I'm sorry, I should have directed to you.
yes, Senator, it's a renewed emphasis on it, and I think that's very important to get to the detail of it and point out how important it is. And so you're basically correct. It doesn't necessarily change things, but just a renewed emphasis.
Emphasize it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is really not a question per se about the bill. I guess it's the bill drafter, but you said Section 7 contains some new language.
I don't think I have this up.
I think you mentioned section 7.
Repealed.
Section 6 is the language that was changed from the sub for the budget, the school budgets to be reported in a newspaper and on the district's website.
Okay, but there's no changes in, I thought he mentioned section 7, the change about
Senator
the
Higdon,
annual.
it said those sections are repealed.
Yes.
Section
Okay.
7, the following
Yes.
KR sections are
Okay.
repealed.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
usually they have a strike through, you know,
Yeah.
we, legislators like those cliff note type things where you can. you
I
don't
thought
have
the
to read
same
it that
thing. I thought the
closely.
same thing you were
Okay,
thinking.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, I do really want to emphasize that we are not removing any audit, any audit requirement from any school districts. As being in finance and operations, I can tell you those audits are extremely important. That's not what this is doing. It's just repealing a piece of language from the early 1990s that envisioned a different system than what we really have at present.
And Mr. Chairman, you mentioned eliminating red tape, and it eliminates duplicative stuff and outdated stuff, and so it brings things up to date, but it should save time and resources and money at the KDE level and at the school level.
Right. And back to Senator Thomas's comments earlier, I mean, it sounds simple. Just give us a report on physical activity every year and communicate with the districts. But as we know in education, things aren't always simple. So, Senator Williams, I believe, has a question.
Yeah, and this is regarding the physical activity. I remember back in the days when President Kennedy had a nationwide mandate for when I was in school doing push-ups and pull-ups and jumping jacks and squats and everything. We all did it. I don't think that's no longer applies at the nation level or really at the state level. What I see in this, at the state level, we're not setting standards, but the local school sets their own district, sets their own standards.
That's correct.
And does their own reporting, and that's why they're apples to oranges, because they can be different standards for a rural versus an urban school.
That's right.
But they still have to have some sort of physical activity standards.
That's right.
But they don't specify jumping jacks and squats and push-ups.
That's correct. That's correct. Okay.
Good comment. Good comment. Any other questions from members? Seeing none, do we have a motion on Senate? We have a motion from Senator Givens, a second from Senator Williams. Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll, Senator Givens, Senator Higdon, Senator Meredith, Senator Neal, Senator Rawlings,
Aye.
Senator Reed, Senator Thomas,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to briefly explain my aye vote.
Please proceed.
Yeah, I think this is a good bill, and it makes a lot of sense, and it does have the support of the Kentucky Department of Education. Again, I just want to reiterate what Senator Williams said. I mean, physical activity is important, and you know, there's issues out there in the public domain now as to whether our students are getting us enough physical activity. I mean, we all know the athletes are. I mean, we're a sports emphatic society, but just the regular person, are they getting enough physical activity? The regular student. I mean, that's an important question we ask in our society, and I trust that we're getting sufficient information and we're providing enough physical activity for all our students as they mature and become adults. Having made that statement, I vote aye.
Senator Tishner, Senator Williams,
Aye. Aye.
Senator Wilson, Senator Wise, Chair West.
Aye. Senate Bill 68, as amended by the Senate Committee Substitute, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and everyone there at the table. Up next on the docket today, we have SB 207, an act relating to public school innovation. That's my bill, and Senator Tishner will take over as I go to the table.
While we are waiting for our chair to take his seat, we have an introduction from Senator Givens.
Chairwoman Tishner, thank you. In the process of introducing the folks in the room, it came to mind that with Leader Wilson out today, we have the honor of having Tim Slosher from Simpson County here. And Tim, thank you for your leadership in that community. Senator Wilson would have loved to have introduced you himself, but him not being here. And me being a former state senator representing Simpson County and wishing in so many ways I still had that wonderful county, We're honored to have you here. Thank you.
Okay. Senator West, if you can introduce yourself for the record,
Yep. Center West, District 27.
please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What you have before you today is Senate Bill 207, the School Innovation Act. And I'll get right into it. Senate Bill 207 sets up a new operational option within the public school system. In essence, it allows a public school district to apply to the Kentucky Board of Education for waivers, requesting certain existing regulations and to be exempt from those regulations and to form a school of innovation. These schools of innovation would be set up on 3-year contracts. They could be with third-party entities. The purpose of the school would be to bring innovation, new ideas, and methods to what may have been a failing school and unshackle that school from layers of burdensome regulations and red tape. I'd like to lay out the clearest examples of where this new option may be effective. A district has a school that, for whatever reason, is not getting it right. They may be on the CSI list or headed that way. They may have been on the CSI list numerous times and headed in that direction. This bill allows district leadership to say, this school in its current form is failing our kids and parents, and we need to try something different. The current system is not working. This bill allows that particular school to have a fresh start. And this is meant, to be clear, this is meant to be within the existing public system. And a prime example, the easy example would be JCPS, a large system with a certain number of schools that have been underperforming for many years. That would be the clearest example, but this applies across the state. This could be any school district in the state of Kentucky. Once again, this is within the existing public school system. At this point, I'd like to go through just a very brief bullet point list, some of the things the bill does do and does not do. It sets up a new waiver program for districts to submit to the State Board of Education to waive administrative regulations. It lists important existing regulations that cannot be waived. It deletes districts of innovation language. So in years past, we've had districts of innovation. Those were never used and never implemented and employed. And this just kind of cleans that up, removes districts of innovation and adds schools of innovation. It deletes some existing waiver language. So we set up a new waiver in the statute, and to make all the statutes comply, it cleans up other areas and makes things streamlined. It establishes the procedure for receiving the waiver from the Kentucky Board of Education, and it sets up the term of the waiver contract. So these terms would be a 3-year contract. So if after 3 years, if the district found that contract was no longer working and effective, they could shut down the contract. It's also important to note within the reading of the legislation, if there are things happening at that particular school that are beyond the pale, for instance, financial fraud, certain items, that district can go in and shut down that contract immediately as well. So there's just a bullet point list of some of the things that are happening within the bill. The genesis of this bill came from a visit. Co-Chair Tipton is in the audience today. We visited a school of innovation in Charleston, city of Charleston, during SLC a couple years ago. And that's where we were first made aware of boots on the ground, what was actually happening in these schools, the good work they were doing. So that's kind of the genesis of this idea. This is not a new idea. This has been tried in other states. South Carolina and Indianapolis are the two main places where this idea has been tried. South Carolina, I believe, has had these things since about 2011. And So this is not a new idea. And it's just very, very basic in my mind. If you have a system, if you have an overarching educational system that is not responsive to the needs of kids and parents, and that system is really hemmed in. They're hemmed in with the regulations that we put on them. They may be hemmed in with the metrics and the things that are in place at that particular school. It may be an impossible situation for those principals and teachers to turn that school around based on student ratios, based on funding, based on bureaucracy from Frankfurt and the Board of Education. And so this is a way out. This is, in closing on the particulars, this is not mandatory. This is 100% optional. This is a new option for a public school district to change the dynamic. And as a final note, I will say that the results from Indianapolis and from South Carolina have been good. The students in these schools seem to be performing above average, and in these schools, the ones that have been set up, they have proven to be successful. And so that's in essence the bill. I'm sure I'll have many questions. This is new ground. This is something Kentucky has never done before. This is innovation. This is an attempt to be innovative, think outside the box. And so, Madam Chair, I'm open to any questions anyone may have on 207.
I'm going to take a little liberty and ask a few myself as the chair. I see we have a fiscal note, but there's no anticipation of what that could be. It didn't come back with. Do you have any idea, looking at South Carolina, Indianapolis, what we could potentially look at for a school when they change over what that fiscal expense would be?
Yeah, the fiscal note said indeterminable, and the main reason for it being indeterminable is we don't know how many people, or if any, will take advantage of this. You could have 0 people take advantage of it. You could have 20 different districts take advantage of it. So it'll depend totally on the numbers that take advantage. From a pure fiscal impact, there shouldn't be much change from the existing budget. Many things will happen within the existing framework. So the SEEK will flow down through the district. The local taxes will flow down through the district. Transportation will flow down through the district. The school building will remain owned by the district. So none of that changes. An important component of this, however, is I'm hoping and I see a possible impact on the other direction. It is possible that you could bring, if run properly and worked out properly, you could bring new money into the district. Outside private money could flow into the district. And so what I mean by that is you have, let's say you have an underperforming school and the district sets up that as a school of innovation. The normal money flows down through the SEEK formula. The money flows down through the local match, the local taxation, and you have an interested philanthropist in that city decides, I want to adopt this school as my school. I want to see these kids succeed. Maybe these kids, there are districts where kids are 10% on level, and they've been that way for years. And if you got maybe a philanthropist that says, I want to adopt this school as my school, I'm willing to put X number of dollars into this particular school. I'm hoping, and maybe you could eventually see more money flowing into that particular school. So there's the long explanation of a short question.
Thank you. You answered a couple of my questions. Senator Thomas.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of questions for Senator West, if I may.
Proceed.
Okay. Senator West, my first question is this. As I was reading Senate Bill 207, it seemed to apply only to those schools that were failing, that were in the bottom 5% of all our schools. Is that correct? that those are the only schools that can seek to have these waivers and be deemed a school of innovation?
This bill does not state that explicitly. So to me, the answer would be no. It's pretty much wide open. And so once again, it's at the discretion of the local school district and what they would choose to do.
Okay. Well, just as a follow-up, I'm pleased to hear that because, while I support this bill and think we ought to be open, as you said in your opening statement, to new ideas and having fresh starts, I agree with that. I could see an argument for saying that schools that are highly successful, high achieving, ought to be the ones that should seek these waivers and be less burdened by administrative regulations and heavy oversight by the state, because if a school is doing well, then you want to give them more flexibility, more imagination to do things because they're doing so well now, and just let them fly even higher and fly even faster. So I could see this also being very useful to those schools that are really knocking the ball out of the park.
I totally agree. You have, magnet schools or gifted schools. In my opinion, there's no reason why this same model could not apply to them. And when we passed charter school legislation a few years ago, that's a big complaint we heard was from the public sector is, well, you're giving this ability to these charter schools. Why not give us some of that same ability to be relieved from these burdensome regulations that are upon us?
Well, I was making that argument.
Yeah,
I made that argument.
Exactly. And so this, in my opinion, this bill does that. This bill gives our publics the same ability to be innovative. If they choose to go down this path, this gives them the ability to be to chart a new course and to try some new things. So yeah.
Senator Williams?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So there are some districts like Boone and Kitten have Ignite. Carroll County within a single district has a similar school system that STEM program. How would this affect them?
It would not affect them at all unless the district decided we want that particular school to be a school of innovation, and then they would start down that road and that process of applying for the waiver from the Board of Education and following all there's some detailed protocols in here you got to follow to be approved, and so they could go down that pathway if they chose to. They would have to follow the guardrails that we set out, and it would be on a 3-year contract, and so that would be up to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Wise?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator West, thank you for the bill. I'm kind of following up on that. So before I got into the legislature, our Taylor County School District, and even when I drive by there, it says Taylor County Schools, a school of innovation or a campus of innovation currently. So does this change of what they would need to do? And why were they named that? Was that just something at that time the superintendent, who's not the current superintendent, I want to make that clear, came up with? I think what they were doing was trying to be innovative of moving kids, of maybe they tested at an 8th grade level and there was a 6th grader that they could move up and have some flexibility, and some other things that probably were a part of that. So does this currently change then by them calling themselves a school of innovation or campus? Just kind of help me with that, because I just don't want to go down that path if they're already doing this or they need to be now doing something different.
So this may be a John Ballard or Josh Collins question offline, but my understanding is, we had District of Innovation is kind of a relic. It's been there for a long time in statute. Maybe they were doing something along those lines at that time, but it's no longer, to my knowledge, there's no longer there's not a district as a District of Innovation. So I don't think there's any impact at all to Taylor County. They may have just been calling themselves a District of Innovation, and it sounds good.
Yep.
Sounds good, but
Looks good on a sign.
it looks great on the sign. But to my knowledge, my wording in my bill does nothing to change that or pull any existing District of Innovation thing that they have now away from them.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you, Senator
But I'd
West.
be happy to talk offline in case it does.
That sounds great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I generally like the idea, giving the school the capacity to make adjustment it sees that it could be useful in the context they're functioning in. And you may have answered this question. I just want to make sure. Of those districts that are using that now elsewhere in the country, are there any studies associated with the efficacy or positive outcomes from adjustments they've made that are available?
Senator Neal, I knew you were on the committee, and so I've tried to prepare myself the best I can. Yes, and so you're very familiar with the Stanford Credo studies, and a lot of that work was done on charter schools, but they have also done work on schools of innovation, and so they have studies on this. And the innovation, this is somewhat dated. It's from 2018-19, but those innovation school students aligned with state averages, while at the same time many of the traditional students were well below state averages. So the data showed that they were performing at a higher level in these schools of innovation, especially with math and reading. They were performing on a higher level. I'd have to get some more information on South Carolina, but the general consensus is that they're performing at a much higher level than the traditional school counterpart. Let me read some more here real quick. South Carolina's School of Innovation have reported improved student growth rates and increased college attendance, indicating positive impacts on student achievement. But they are always evaluating the status quo and what's going on. So this is, I will tell you, this is new. This is innovative. So there's not this long 25-year graph chart that I can show you on achievement, but in a few places after 13, 14 years, it seemed, in the limited places that it's used, it seems to be working. And personal experience, Co-Chair Tipton, myself in South Carolina, the reason the city of Charleston did this, there was a particular school, the one that we went to, it had been underachieving for years and years and years. And the city of Charleston school system said, what have we got to lose? What have we got to lose? And they've done the contract and haven't looked back. They haven't looked back. Now I'm not going to tell you there's not issues, there's not problems that have to be worked out between the district and the school, and there's always hiccups when you try anything new. But overall, it seems to be successful. Yeah.
A couple more questions, Senator Givens.
Madam Chair, thank you.
I'll put you back on the list.
Chairman West, thank you for this piece of legislation. I'm excited about what you're doing here, and I'm applauding you and our staff that's worked on, both LRC and Senate President's Office staff that's worked on this. I do want to note at the end of the document, page 46 of 46, section 11 does repeal the current districts of innovation. But I don't think there's a concern with that. As I read and have read the districts of innovation and what you're doing here, you're providing, in my mind, even more latitude. So a district of innovation can easily become a school of innovation, or schools within a district can become schools of innovation, where right now we have to have an entire district of innovation. So I'm very supportive of what you're doing, and I think the questions that Leader Wise asked are very astute questions, but I think Taylor County will be fine in moving forward under this legislation should it pass. A couple of other quick observations. I'm noticing on page 4, sub 8, and this just struck me as I was reading the literal reading of the language. Our drafting staff amazes me because they're so talented at what they do that I'm sure there's no concern in what I'm going to raise. I did not see in here anywhere the language that we typically include that says notwithstanding any law to the contrary. And by that not being included, Chairman West, I'm going to ask you to put your legal hat on for a second. Sub 8, where it says, any school that is subject to a waiver shall admit any and all children eligible to attend the school policies. I'm almost tempted to say, and in accordance with current state law, but I don't think there's a need to do that. And here's where I'm headed. We have created quite a bit of positive change, in my mind, with open borders. Open borders is mandated by the state that if you have capacity, you take students. Some boards may not like the open borders. Some local boards may not, and that language by itself on the face sounds like they don't have to take children outside of the district. But again, with no notwithstanding, I presume that everything is still in compliance. So just a thought to put a little star and a question by that one and see what you and staff think about. And then the last one,
If I could respond real quick.
Please.
Yeah, so as you know, the reason for that is, and this harkens back to our charter school discussion several years ago. We don't want to cherry pick kids, right? And so this basically sets out part of the framework that if you're going to do one of these schools of innovation, you just can't cherry pick the best. And so if those kids were able to go to that school anyway through existing board policy, then you're fine. But you can't just set up a new framework where you get to pick out the best. Now, going back to Senator Thomas's question, if you're talking about magnet schools or those type of things, I don't think that negatively affects that either, because they can. My understanding is under current statute and law, you're allowed to set up magnet schools, and you're allowed to set up the student body ratio based on. They can do that now. And so I think that's what this does, but I'm open to further.
I fully expect we're fine, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And by bringing it to your attention, staff is alerted to it as well. So if there's a concern, I'm sure they'll approach you or approach me. Last one I'll mention is one of those odd occurrences that kind of ships passing in the night sort of thing. The last few pages, the last 5 pages or so of your legislation deal with KRS related to KRS 164-769, the Teacher Scholarship Program, because you're making a very small change where a 3 becomes a 2 on page 42. But interestingly enough, Senator Higdon has Senate Bill 253, which makes robust changes in this same space. And so I'm sure statute revision can figure it all out. But if staff that is so much more knowledgeable than we are has any thoughts on timing of which one may need to go before the other, we might want to take that and keep it in mind. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could predict what laws we will pass and not pass, and that way we can. But I'm well aware of Senator Higdon's bill, and we'll definitely keep that in mind as it moves forward.
All right, we just have 2 more questions. Senator Higdon, and then Senator Neal will come back to you to finish us up. Okay.
Yeah, my bill's running into fiscal note problems, so we'll see how that goes. My question was going to be what Senator Wise asked about the districts of innovation, and Senator Neal and Senator Givens, myself, were here. That was post charter school legislation. Bam Carney was instrumental in some of that, but I did to answer the question. I went to Google. You know, that authority. The inaugural districts of innovation were Danville, Eminence, Jefferson County Schools, and Taylor County Schools. And I don't know that it's expanded any from the inaugural class, but I guess that was going to be my question, the similarities between this and districts of innovation, which supposedly would allow school districts to be more charter-like and throw out some of the rules. Taylor County was always good about throwing out rules. Anyway, they weren't rule followers, so it suited them fine. And I think Senator Wise would agree with me. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know if I want to comment on that or not, Senator Higdon, but there's no intent of this legislation to conflict with anything that's existing, and we can talk offline later. But my understanding is any district across the state now can apply for waivers. That's another important part of this legislation, that the bill draft, we have an excellent bill drafter, Josh, did a methodical job of trying to clean that all up in statute and make it concise and coherent. So if this in any way conflicts with Taylor County or Jefferson County, their current district of innovation, I'll be happy to change it, but I believe it does not.
Got a motion, Senator Givens, second by Senator Wise. All right, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Rawlings. Senator Reed. Senator Thomas.
Madam Chair, I'd like to explain my aye vote, please.
Please proceed.
I talk to a lot of teachers all the time, and generally speaking, the biggest criticism that I hear from teachers about the way we regulate teachers is that there's too many regulations, too many requirements. It's too burdensome. They don't have the time to teach. I mean, I get that more than pay or disciplinary actions. That's what I hear from teachers more than anything else. And so I like this measure because as you indicated, I'm all for less regulating teachers, less regulating schools, and giving them the flexibility to teach and spending more time on our children, educating them, than spending more time by themselves filling out paperwork. So I think this is a step in the right direction. And so that's the reason I like this bill, and I vote aye for it.
Thank you.
Senator Tishner.
Aye.
Senator Williams.
Aye.
Senator Wilson. Senator Wise. Chair West.
Aye.
All right, the bill passes 11-0, no nays, and we hope it will do the same on the floor. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your work on this bill.
Thank you so much.
If there's nothing else we need to do, let's just adjourn, huh?
I make a motion for adjournment.
Thank you.